Hey, welcome back. It's Dr. Christine. Today's Success on the Spectrum Talk. We're talking today about masking. Masking is something that neurodivergent people will often do as a coping strategy to live life in our society. So welcome, I'm Dr. Christine Bradstreet. I'm a retired chiropractor. I have ADHD and I'm on the autism spectrum. And today I run this channel here to help people like you and me live our happiest, healthiest lives. So thank you for being here, and just before we get started, I'm going to ask you to please subscribe to the channel, because when you subscribe to my YouTube channel, it's like supporting my small business, but it doesn't cost you any money, and it will allow me to continue my research and to share my information with people like you and like me, so that we can all live our best lives. What is masking? So it can also be called autistic masking, camouflaging, or social masking. And like I said at the beginning of the video, it's a coping mechanism, it's a survival tool, and in many ways it helps the neurodivergent community to navigate life, but it can also have the flip side of the coin and not always be so helpful. So let's learn about it. First off, you may or may not even know that you're doing it. We learn at such a young age how to copy, how to mimic other people's behaviors, the behavior of the people around us. And people with a neurodivergent mind are often keen observers. And so they're taking in all of this information. And also we're very sensitive to criticism or the perception that we've done something wrong. So even very small children learn very quickly what's acceptable, what's not acceptable. And to a degree, correct, everybody does this. This is how we learn culturally to all live together in our society. But neurodivergent people, it's a little bit different. They are masking to take on a persona that will be acceptable, as well as to inhibit, hide, suppress some behaviors or actions or activities that may feel completely normal to them, but may not be perceived as normal or acceptable to other people. Now, masking can be exhausting, and this is one of the things that can lead to autistic burnout, and you can see more about that in this video here. But masking can be exhausting because it involves willpower to suppress some natural tendencies, for example, like stimming. Stimming might be playing with your hair, cracking your knuckles, picking at your fingers, picking at your scalp, using a repetitive word or sound, tapping your feet, shaking the legs. All these things that everybody to some degree does this as a self-soothing mechanism, but neurodivergent people tend to do it quite a bit more. But it's not always acceptable to seem so fidgety or to be doing that same thing over and over again. So we suppress it. That's an example of masking. Another example of masking might be forcing eye contact, sustained eye contact. So sustained or intense eye contact can be very challenging for the neurodivergent person. It can feel like a violation of personal space. It can just get to be a little bit too intense. But if you have to force yourself to do that, it's really amping up the fight or flight chemicals and really becoming very physically and mentally exhausting. Also, forcing yourself to sit still and appear comfortable and at ease and relaxed and like you're having a good time when you feel as if you're being bombarded by maybe bright lights, flashing lights, too much background noise, competing conversations, smells, textures. It can all get to be overwhelming to the brain and nervous system. But to appear as if you're having a good time, or to appear as if you look like everybody else, you've got to take on this persona of being at ease and comfortable and easygoing, even though inside you may be extremely tense or even distressed by all the stimulation that's going on around you. In ADHD and on the autism spectrum, it's not uncommon to have sudden and fast flare-ups of strong emotions, but it takes willpower and mental strength to learn to handle them in a way that is socially acceptable. And it takes practice, and it takes a lot of energy to suppress the energy of the emotion that wants to come out, but we need to learn how to do that in a way that isn't hurtful to others or hurtful to ourselves. In summary, it leaves the neurodivergent person constantly on alert, constantly on the lookout for, how do I behave? What do I say? What should I look like? What should I not do that I want to do? What should I do that I don't want to do? And it becomes a series of rapid fire observation, adjustment, calculations, as opposed to what I suspect in a neurotypical mind might just flow a little bit more naturally, a little bit more easily. And the brain takes up a lot of our calories. Our brain uses body energy as well, just like our muscles do. So guess what? At the end of the day, you may feel completely spent or exhausted from a day at the office or a social outing or something unexpected happening. Now, I said at the beginning of the video, people aren't always doing this consciously. It could be conscious or subconscious. But I want to stress, people are not doing this to be manipulative. It's more of a survival technique. But it does leave people questioning who's the real you. The people around you may question who's the real you. You may even question who's the real you, because you may show up as a different version of you depending on where you go. And there may be very few places or situations where you feel comfortable taking off the mask and just being yourself. Masking may play a role in relationships always feeling like they're at an arm's length, or even relationships breaking down. Masking also may be why you pick up a certain interest only to let it go because another day is another interest, only to let that one go and then another interest down the road, because the mask is not real. The mask is not who you truly are on the inside. It's the persona that we develop. Now again, to a degree, everybody does this. And like I said earlier, masking has its upside, but masking also can leave you feeling anxious, depleted, stressed, questioning what's real, what's not real, who you really truly are. And it can interfere with having meaningful connections with other people. Now, one dangerous aspect of masking is that it can and does lead to delayed diagnosis of people on the autism spectrum or with ADHD, particularly for women. And you can watch that video here where I go into more detail about that. But when you mask, you're covering up your clinical signs and symptoms that would make a diagnosis happen more quickly or more easily. I did not get diagnosed with ADHD until my 40s. I did not get diagnosed as being on the autism spectrum until my 50s because I was so good at masking and covering up my symptoms. Now, if you weren't diagnosed until adulthood, chances are you are also very good at masking. Now, everybody's got to decide for themselves how much masking is appropriate. Do you even want to mask? Do you even care to mask anymore? I would say if you are suppressing a behavior that's going to be harmful or hurtful to somebody else or to yourself, then yes, masking can be very handy until you learn other coping strategies and have further along your healing path. But if you're starting to feel as if you're in a point in life where you don't care so much about making a certain impression on people, then you drop your mask to the amount that you feel comfortable. And I know personally, it was very empowering when I got my diagnosis because it's nothing to be ashamed about. It's nothing for me to hide. I mean, clearly I talk about it here on YouTube in front of thousands of people. And it is my passion for ADHD and for the autism spectrum, for this to be no different than the difference between being right-handed and left-handed. And while we may need support and accommodations in certain areas, we have so many gifts, so much to share, so many superpowers, so many strengths. I don't want a mask to cover any of that up. All right, my friends, love yourself for who you are. I love and respect you, and you do what you need to do to be your happiest and healthiest self. Thank you for being here. Please like the video, please share it with others, and please subscribe before you go. I'll see you next week. Bye-bye.